Vahasiva Pusti Vishare Vasanam Jaladhavam Alahati Viti Milita Jamunabam. One more time. Vahasiva Pushi Vishade Vasanam Jaladhavam Alahati Viti Milita Jamunabam. Vahasiva Pushi Vishade Vasanam Jaladhavam Keshavadita Haladara Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare. Everybody Keshavadita. Keshavadita Haladara Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare. Hi, Baladev. Now we'll read the translation. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Balarama, the yielder of the plow, all glories to you. On your brilliant white body you wear garments the color of a fresh blue rain cloud. These garments are colored like the beautiful dark hue of the river Yamuna, who feels great fear due to the striking of your plowshare. Baladev ki jai. All right, so now we'll say a few words about Lord Balaram's position, and then we'll read some pastimes. In the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first chapter, text number 20, there's a nice verse that says, Kritavan kila karmani saharamena keshava timaryanti bhagavan guda kapata manusha. It says that Lord Krishna, along with Balaram, appeared in this world just like ordinary human beings, and so masked, they performed superhuman acts. Attimartyani means superhuman. So this is Lord Balaram's position. He's not an ordinary living entity. For Jiva souls, even up to and including the great acharyas, we observe twice. Avirbhav, their appearance, and Tirobhav, their disappearance. But for the Supreme Lord, we never observe Tirobhav, because the Lord doesn't disappear. He keeps the same form always. Our form changes. Even the great souls, when they come into this world, as I've said once in Vyas Puja, I don't know how I'm going to recognize Srila Prabhupada when I actually get back to the spiritual world. He's not going to look like this. He will be in his original spiritual form. And all of us will be in our original spiritual forms when we finally get back to the spiritual world. So we're not going to be searching all over Goloka looking for somebody who looks like that. Srila Prabhupada is not in that form in the spiritual world. He's in his original spiritual form. But the Lord, when he comes, he doesn't change his form. It's the same eternal form. It's explained in the Adi Lila that the Lord's personal expansions are two types. The Prakash Vigraha are those forms that look exactly like Krishna. And the example given is in the Rasa dance, Krishna appeared between each gopi. Every two gopis, there was Krishna between them. And it was the same Krishna. It's not that every one of those look different. That's the same Krishna. That's a Prakash expansion. Looks exactly like Krishna because it is Krishna. No difference. Then there's the Vilas Vigraha, those expansions that look slightly different. So Balaram falls in that category. And there's a verse there that explains that. It says, Yaiche Baladeva, Paravominarayan, Yaiche Vasudeva, Pradumnani Sankarshat. So it's explained that these forms, beginning with Baladev, they are personal expansions of Krishna, but they look slightly different. They don't have, like for instance, what is Balaram's complexion? White. And Krishna's complexion? Shyama, blackish. So although he is Krishna and a direct expansion of Krishna, he doesn't look exactly like Krishna. And what color garments is Balaram wearing? Blue. And Krishna? Yellow. Golden yellow. So in this way, we understand Balaram's position. He's Krishna's direct first expansion, but he doesn't look exactly like Krishna. And so he comes in this world with the same mission as Krishna. Paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya chadoshkritam. To enliven the devotees and to chastise the demons. So we're going to, time permitting, read some pastimes about Lord Balaram, beginning with chapter 65, Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. So, Lord Balaram became very anxious to see his father and mother in Vrindavan. Therefore, with great enthusiasm, he started on a chariot for Vrindavan. Does Balaram need a chariot? No, he doesn't. We heard this morning that all the energy, including what we call gravity, is just a manifestation of Balaram's potency. So he doesn't need a chariot to go from here to there, but this is pastime. Again, Guda Kapata Manusha, when they come into the material world, they look like ordinary human beings and they act, oh, I'm going from here to there, I need to take a chariot. But he doesn't need to take a chariot. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had been anxious to see Krishna and Balaram for a long time. For a very long time. When Lord Balaram returned to Vrindavan, all the cowherd boys and the gopis had grown up. Doesn't mean that they're sporting gray hairs and long hair. No, we know that it's calculated that on the Battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna was about 125 years old. So his consorts, they were also much older, but they all looked just like young, fresh youth. But still on his arrival, they all embraced him, and Balaram embraced them in reciprocation. After this, he came before Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda and offered his respectful obeisances. In response, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj offered their blessings unto him. They addressed him as Jagadishvara, or the Lord of the universe who maintains everyone. The reason for this was that Krishna and Balaram maintain all living entities, and yet Nanda and Yashoda were put into such difficulties on account of their absence. Feeling this, they embraced Balaram and, seating him on their laps, began their perpetual crying, wetting Balaram with their tears. Lord Balaram then offered his respectful obeisances to the elderly cowherd men and accepted the obeisances of the younger cowherd men. Thus, according to their different ages and relationships, Lord Balaram exchanged feelings of friendship with them. He shook hands with those who were his equals in age and friendship, and with loud laughing embraced each one of them. So here the Lord is making a distinction based on position, and we should also do the same. Sometimes we forget that etiquette. And just one example that I try to inculcate in the young devotees, when you approach an older devotee, senior devotee, don't touch them. Definitely don't slap them on the back. If you want their attention, how do we get somebody's attention? Hari Bol, Prabhu. But I see every day this happens. Some younger devotees approaching a senior devotee with a flower and they touch them. That is against all etiquette. You don't touch a superior Vaishnava. You get their attention. And even if after you say Hari Bol, they don't give you their attention, they leave it at that. That's their prerogative. They don't have to respond. After being received by the cowherd men and boys, the gopis, and King Nanda and Yashoda, Lord Balaram sat down, feeling satisfied, and they all surrounded him. First, Lord Balaram inquired from them about their welfare, and then, since they had not seen him for such a long time, they began to ask him different questions. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had sacrificed everything for Krishna, simply being captivated by the lotus eyes of the Lord. Because of their great desire to love Krishna, they never desired anything like elevation to the heavenly planets or merging into the effulgence of Brahman to become one with the absolute truth. They were not even interested in enjoying a life of opulence, but were satisfied in living a simple life in the village as cowherds. They were always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and did not desire any personal benefits. And they were all so much in love with him that in his absence their voices faltered when they began to inquire from Balaramaji. First, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai inquired, quote, "My dear Balarama, are our friends like Vasudeva and others in the family doing well? Now you and Krishna are grown up, married men with children. In the happiness of family life, do you sometimes remember your poor father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi? It is very good news that the most sinful King Kamsa has been killed by you, and that our friends like Vasudeva and the others who had been harassed have now been relieved. It is also very good news that you and Krishna defeated Jarasandha and Kalayavana, who is now dead, and that you are now living in a fortified residence in Dwarka." End of quote. When the gopis arrived, Lord Balaram glanced over them with loving eyes. Being overjoyed, the gopis who had so long been mortified on account of Krishna's and Balaram's absence began to ask about the welfare of the two brothers. They specifically asked Balaram whether Krishna was enjoying his life surrounded by the enlightened women of Dwarkapuri. Quote, "Does he sometimes remember his father Nanda and his mother Yashoda and the other friends with whom he so intimately behaved while in Vrindavan? Does Krishna have any plans to come here to see his mother Yashoda? And does he remember us gopis who are now pitiably bereft of his company? Krishna may have forgotten us in the midst of the cultured women of Dwarka, but as far as we are concerned, we still remember him by collecting flowers and sewing them into garlands. When he does not come, however, we simply pass our time by crying. If only he would come here and accept these garlands we have made. Dear Lord Balaram, descendant of Dashara, you know that we would give up everything for Krishna's friendship. Even in great distress, one cannot give up the connection of family members. But although it might be impossible for others, we gave up our fathers, mothers, sisters, and relatives. But then Krishna, without caring a pinch for our renunciation, all of a sudden renounced us and went away. He broke off our intimate relationship without serious consideration and left for a foreign country. It's still India, but they consider it a foreign country because it's so far away from Vrindavan. But he was so clever and cunning that he manufactured very nice words. He said, "My dear gopis, please do not worry. The service you have rendered me is impossible for me to repay, napareham. After all, we are women, so how could we disbelieve him? Now we can understand that his sweet words were simply for cheating us." So it's instructive that they first of all mentioned that Krishna is now associating with sophisticated women, highly cultured women, because the implication was that you can't cheat them. They're too smart. We're simply village girls, so you can tell us anything and we believe you. But these sophisticated women in Mathura and Dwarka, you can't fool them. So continuing. Protesting Krishna's absence from Vrindavan, another gopi said, quote, "My dear Balaramaji, we are of course village girls, so Krishna could cheat us in that way. But what about the women of Dwarka? Don't think they are as foolish as we are. We village women might be misled by Krishna, but the women in the city of Dwarka are very clever and intelligent. Therefore, I would be surprised if such city women could be misled by Krishna and could believe his words." End of quote. Then another gopi began to speak. Quote, "My dear friend," she said, "Krishna is very clever in using words. No one can compete with him in that art. He can manufacture such colorful words and talk so sweetly that the heart of any woman would be misled. Besides that, he has perfected the art of smiling very attractively. And by seeing his smile, women become mad after him and give themselves to him without hesitation. So just as we have here in our community our Radha Kripa Kataksha, Radha, everybody knows, refers to Radharani. Kripa means mercy, and Kataksha means sidelong glance. So Krishna also gives sidelong glances, and just a little hint of a smile. Prabhupada said, just that little hint of a smile is enough to satisfy the devotees. They're meditating on Krishna's features. Another gopi, after hearing this, said, "My dear friends, what is the use of talking about Krishna? If you are at all interested in passing time by talking, let us talk on some subject other than him. If cruel Krishna can pass his time without us, why can't we pass our time without Krishna? Of course, Krishna is passing his days without us very happily, but we cannot pass our days happily without him." So they're telling all this to Balaram. Of course, Balaram is omniscient. He knows all of this, but they're revealing their hearts. When the gopis were talking in this way, their feelings for Krishna became more and more intense, and they were experiencing Krishna's smiling, Krishna's words of love, Krishna's attractive features, Krishna's characteristics, and Krishna's embraces. By the force of their ecstatic feelings, it appeared to them that Krishna was personally present and dancing before them. Because of their sweet remembrance of Krishna, they could not check their tears, and they cried without consideration. Lord Balarama, of course, could understand the ecstatic feelings of the gopis, and therefore he wanted to pacify them. He was expert in presenting an appeal, and thus, treating the gopis very respectfully, he began to narrate the stories of Krishna so tactfully that the gopis became satisfied. To keep the gopis in Vrindavan satisfied, Lord Balaram stayed there continuously for 2 months, namely the months of Chaitra, March, April, and Vaishakha, April, May. For those 2 months, he kept himself among the gopis, and he passed every night with them in the forest of Vrindavan to satisfy their desire for conjugal love. Thus, Balaram also enjoyed the rasa dance with the gopis during those 2 months. Since the season was springtime, the breeze on the bank of Jamuna was blowing very mildly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, especially the flower known as Kaumudi. Moonlight filled the sky and spread everywhere, and thus the banks of the Jamuna appeared very bright and pleasing, and Lord Balaram enjoyed the company of the gopis there. Of course, our acharyas explain that Krishna has his set of gopis and Balaram has his set of gopis. The demigod, known as Varuna, sent his daughter Baruni in the form of liquid honey oozing from the hollows of the trees. Because of this honey, the whole forest became aromatic, and the sweet aroma of the liquid honey, Varuni, captivated Balaramaji. And Balaramaji and all the gopis became very much attracted by the taste of the Varuni, and all of them drank it together. While drinking this natural beverage, all the gopis chanted glories of Lord Balaram, and Lord Balaram felt very happy, as if he had become intoxicated by drinking that Varuni beverage. His eyes rolled in a pleasing attitude. He was decorated with long garlands of forest flowers, and the whole situation appeared to be a great function of happiness because of this transcendental bliss. Lord Balarama smiled beautifully, and the drops of perspiration decorating his face appeared like soothing morning dew. While Balaram was in that happy mood, he desired to enjoy the company of the gopis in the water of the Jamuna. Therefore, he called the Jamuna to come nearby. So this is what we read in the Dashtavatar Stotra. This is the pastime it was referring to. But the Jamuna neglected the order of Balaramaji, and considering him intoxicated, Lord Balaram became very much displeased at the Yamuna's neglecting his order. He immediately wanted to scratch the land near the river with his plowshare. Lord Balaram has 2 weapons, a plow and a club. So he's wearing them today. Everybody can take darshan of the plow and the club, from which he takes service when they are required. This time he wanted to bring the Jamuna by force, and he took the help of his plow. He wanted to punish the Jamuna because she did not come in obedience to his order. He addressed the Yamuna, quote, "You wretched river, you did not care for my order. Now I shall teach you a lesson. You did not come to me voluntarily. Now with the help of my plow, I shall force you to come. I shall divide you into hundreds of scattered streams." End of quote. When the Yamuna was threatened like this, she became greatly afraid of the power of Balaram, and immediately came in person, falling at his lotus feet and praying thus, quote, "My dear Balaram, you are the most powerful personality, and you are pleasing to everyone. Unfortunately, I forgot your glorious, exalted position, but now I have come to my senses, and I remember that you hold all the planetary systems on your head merely by your partial expansion, Shesha. You are the sustainer of the whole universe. My dear Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are full with 6 opulences. Because I forgot your omnipotence, I have mistakenly disobeyed your order, and thus I have become a great offender. But, my dear Lord, please know that I am a soul surrendered unto you, who are very affectionate to your devotees. Therefore, please excuse my impudence and mistakes, and by your causeless mercy, may you now release me." End of quote. Upon displaying this submissive attitude, Jamuna was forgiven, and when she came nearby, Lord Balaram enjoyed the pleasure of swimming in her waters along with the gopis, in the same way that an elephant enjoys himself along with his many she-elephants. How many have swam in the Yamuna? Put your hand up. Now, when I first went there in '76, it was still swimmable. It was pretty clean and pretty wide. But over the years, as you know, industrial pollution, neglect, the Yamuna became like thick sludge. And not only that, there are some huge turtles that live in the Yamuna River and can be detrimental, even for adults, what to speak of children. I was there, I think it was '95, when one child fell into the water, and before the parents could rescue her, the turtles just started. So be very careful. After a long time, when Lord Balaram had enjoyed to his full satisfaction, he came out of the water, and immediately a goddess of fortune offered him a nice blue garment and a valuable necklace made of gold. After bathing in the Jamuna, Lord Balaram, dressed in blue garments and decorated with golden ornaments, looked very attractive to everyone. Lord Balaram's complexion is white, and when he was properly dressed, he looked exactly like the white elephant of King Indra in the heavenly planets. What's the name of that elephant? Airavata. Yeah. The river Jamuna still has many small branches due to being scratched by the plowshare of Lord Balaram, and all these branches of the river Yamuna still glorify the omnipotence of Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram and the gopis enjoyed transcendental pastimes together every night for 2 months, and time passed so quickly that all those nights appeared to be only one night. In the presence of Lord Balaram, all the gopis and other inhabitants of Vrindavan became as cheerful as they had been before in the presence of both brothers, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of this 65th chapter of Krishna, Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. So this is an example of Paritranaya Sadhanam. Lord Balaram is enlivening the residents of Vrindavan by his presence. Again, he's Krishna exactly, but just slight difference in complexion, etc., and therefore he's Vilas Vigraha, not Prakash Vigraha. So now we'll read at least one more chapter that displays Vinashayacha Duskritam. So we'll go to chapter 18, I believe it is, or is it 15? Killing of Pralambasura. Yeah, 18. You got it? Okay. Killing the demon Pralambasura. This is one of my favorite paintings from Krishna book. You've seen most of you, I'm sure. Huge demon Pralambasura, and Balaram looks so small on top, but because he's Balaram, powerful, he smashes him. So, after extinguishing the devastating fire, Krishna, surrounded by his relatives, friends, cows, calves, and bulls, and glorified by his friends singing, again entered Vrindavan, which is always full of cows. While Krishna and Balaram were enjoying life in Vrindavan in the midst of the cowherd boys and girls, the season gradually changed to summer. The summer season in India is not very much welcome because of the excessive heat. But in Vrindavan, everyone was pleased because summer there appeared just like spring. This was possible only because Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are the controllers even of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, were residing there. In Vrindavan, there are many falls which are always pouring water, and the sound is so sweet that it covers the sound of the crickets. And because water flows all over, the forest always looks very green and beautiful. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were never disturbed by the scorching heat of the sun or the high summer temperatures. The lakes of Vrindavan are surrounded by green grasses, and various kinds of lotus flowers bloom there, such as the Kalara, Kanja, and Utpala. And the air blowing in Vrindavan carries the aromatic pollen of those lotus flowers. When the particles of water from the waves of the Jamuna, the lakes, and the waterfalls touched the bodies of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they automatically felt a cooling effect. Therefore, they were practically undisturbed by the summer season. Not necessarily the case nowadays. Anybody here been in Vrindavan in the summertime? The temperature can get to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It is brutal. It's like going to Death Valley here in California. So most devotees, at least those with means, like our Satyanarayan Prabhu, they get out of Vrindavan before summer comes. Not every year? Okay. Vrindavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming, and there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and bees are humming. The cuckoos there sing nicely in 5 kinds of tunes. Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure, blowing his flute, accompanied by his elder brother Balaram and the other cowherd boys and the cows, entered the beautiful forest of Vrindavan to enjoy the atmosphere. They walked into the midst of newly grown leaves of trees whose flowers resembled peacock feathers. They were garlanded by those flowers and decorated with saffron chalk. Sometimes they were dancing and singing, and sometimes wrestling with one another. While Krishna danced, some of the cowherd boys sang and others played on flutes. Some bugled on buffalo horns or clapped their hands, praising Krishna. Quote, "Dear brother, you are dancing very nicely." End of quote. Actually, all these boys were demigods descended from higher planets to assist Krishna in his pastimes. The demigods, garbed in the dress of the cowherd boys, were encouraging Krishna in his dancing, just as one artist encourages another with praise. Up to that time, neither Balaram nor Krishna had undergone the hair-cutting ceremony. Therefore, their hair was clustered like crow's feathers. They were always playing hide and seek with their boyfriends, or jumping, or fighting with them. Sometimes, while his friends were chanting and dancing, Krishna would praise them. Quote, "My dear friends, you are dancing and singing very nicely." The boys played at catching ball with fruits such as bale and amalaka. They played blind man's buff, challenging and touching one another's. Sometimes they imitated the forest deer and various kinds of birds. They joked with one another by imitating croaking frogs, and they enjoyed swinging underneath the trees. Sometimes they would play amongst themselves like a king and his subjects. In this way, Balaram and Krishna, along with all their friends, played all kinds of sports and enjoyed the soothing atmosphere of Vrindavan, full of rivers, lakes, rivulets, fine trees, and excellent gardens filled with fruits and flowers. Once, while the boys were engaged in their transcendental pastimes, a great demon of the name Pralambasura entered their company, desiring to kidnap both Balaram and Krishna. Although Krishna was playing the part of a cowherd boy, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could understand everything, past, present, and future. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Vedaham samatitani vartamani tavarjuna vishani chabutani mam tu veda nakashana. I know everything, past, present, and future, and I know everyone. Yes, sometimes we forget that part. Krishna knows everyone. He knows us better than we know ourselves. Things that we have forgotten in this lifetime, what to speak of so many other lifetimes. So you can't get away with anything. I remember growing up, I thought I got away with so much. Because I learned the formula. In my family, you just had to get good grades in school and the parents would leave you alone. So I got good grades in school and I did all kinds of things that I would make my parents' head spin if they knew. But Krishna knows everything that we've done in this lifetime, in previous lifetimes, since time immemorial. He knows everything, so you can't fool Krishna. So when Pralambasura entered their company, Krishna began to think how to kill the demon. But externally, he received him as a friend. Quote, "Oh, my dear friend," he said, "it is very good that you have come to take part in our pastimes." Krishna then called all his friends and ordered them, "Now we shall play in pairs. We shall challenge one another in pairs." With this proposal, all the boys assembled together. Some of them took the side of Krishna, and some of them took the side of Balaram, and they arranged to play in duel. The defeated members in duel fighting had to carry the victorious members on their backs, as a horse carries its master. They began playing, and at the same time tended the cows as they proceeded through the Bandiravan forest. The party of Balaram, accompanied by Sridhama and Vrishabha, came out victorious, and Krishna's party had to carry them on their backs through the Bandiravan forest. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, being defeated, had to carry Sridhama on his back, and Bhadrasena carried Vrishabha. Imitating their play, Pralambasura, who appeared there as a coward boy, carried Balarama on his back. Pralambasura was the greatest of the demons, and he had calculated that Krishna was the most powerful of the coward boys. In order to avoid the company of Krishna, Pralambasura carried Balaram far away. The demon was undoubtedly very strong and powerful, but he was carrying Balaram, who was compared to a mountain. Therefore, he began to feel the burden, and thus he assumed his real form. When he appeared in his real feature, he was decorated with a golden helmet and earrings, and looked just like a cloud with lightning carrying the moon. Balaram observed the demon's body expanding up to the limits of the clouds, his eyes dazzling like blazing fire and his mouth flashing with sharp teeth. At first, Balaram was surprised by the demon's appearance, and he began to wonder, quote, "How is it that all of a sudden this carrier has changed in every way?" But with a clear mind, he could quickly understand that he was being carried away from his friends by a demon who intended to kill him. Immediately, he struck the head of the demon with a strong fist, just as the king of the heavenly planets strikes a mountain with his thunderbolt. Stricken by the fist of Balaram, the demon fell down dead, just like a snake with a smashed head, and blood poured from his mouth. When the demon fell, he made a tremendous sound, and it sounded as if a great hill were falling upon being struck by the thunderbolt of King Indra. All the boys then rushed to the spot. Astonished by the ghastly scene, they began to praise Balaram with the words, "Well done, well done." What's that in Sanskrit? What's the word? Sadhu, sadhu. Well done, well done. All of them then embraced Balaram with great affection, thinking that he had returned from death, and they offered their blessings and congratulations. All the demigods in the heavenly planets became very satisfied and showered flowers on the transcendental body of Balaram. And they also offered their blessings and congratulations for his having killed the great demon Pralambasura. Thus ended the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 18th chapter of Krishna, killing the demon Pralambasura. Lord Balaram ki jai. So in the 10th canto, we'll end with this. There's a very nice verse, chapter 33, I believe. The gopis are explaining what is the best thing that we can see. Akshan vatam palamardam na param vidama sakya pashuna navesha chaturvayasya vaktram vajesha tanayo anavenu jushtam yarivani pita anarakshakataksha moksham. So they say that as far as we're concerned, the highest fruit that you can attain for your eyes, in other words, the best thing that you can use your eyes to see, is the following. Akshan vatam paramidam napalam. Sakya pashun anuveshas travayasa. You to see Krishna and Balaram and their sakas, their friends, herding the cows out towards the forest. So that's the first part. Then, Bhaktam Vraja Isha Tanayo. Who is Vraja Isha? The controller or king of Nanda Maharaj. So Vraja Isha Tanayo means the two sons of Nanda Maharaj. So Bhaktram Vajesha Tanayo Anuvena Jushtam. And what are they doing? They're playing on flutes. As we heard in this pastime, it's not only Krishna that plays on flutes. The other cowherd boys, they also play flutes and buffalo horn, bugles like that. So, as far as the gopis are concerned, the highest, best thing that you can use your eyes to see is these two brothers, Krishna and Balaram, hanging out with their friends, herding the cows into the forest, playing their flutes, like that. So for today, we should strain to use our eyes to see Lord Balaram. If we're not directly in front of him, then mentally we can have a vision of these pastimes that we heard about today. Balaram visiting the residence of Vrindavan, Balaram killing Palambasur. I'm very fortunate to have that original painting. I say my apartment, it's not my apartment, it belongs to the BBT. I've been in this apartment for like 30 years. And so very fortunate there's some original BBT art there, including that painting. And so every day I get to see this Balaram killing Palambas. Jai, Balaram ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.